And we are now joined on Zoom from Brighton because it would be impossible to get down here from the middle of the day because there was too much traffic, by GBH's Callie Crossley. Callie's the host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights, 89.7 at 6 o'clock, and hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. Also the host, of course, of The Culture Show.
I do the outro.
Oh, you go do the outro. Sorry.
Hello.
How are you, Miss Callie?
I'm fine.
So, Callie, I have a quick question before we proceed. I understand that you were talking about Jaylan Brown's moisturizing techniques earlier in the day.
No,
He's well moisturized. She has a point.
What I was saying is all these great stories are being left untold.
Yes.
And I don't know how you can look at Jaylan Brown and not see his glowy skin. And why has no skin cream company picked up on that and gotten that man a contract? I mean, it is mesmerizing. I don't know what he's saying. I'm just looking at his skin. That's amazing.
She's the woman to do it, is she not?
No, I'm with you, Callie. I actually have to say that's the kind of stuff that when people are on TV that I'm focused on. So I just appreciate the fact that you said it out loud.
Exactly. So anyway, I'm waiting for that contract to come through because, wow, I mean, he comports himself very well before the microphone. I've appreciated that. But I got to say that skin, good grief.
It is. It's good
okay.
So, Callie, GBH's own Soraya Wintersmith did an excellent piece on 50 years after the desegregation order went into effect, issued by Judge Arthur Garrity. How do Boston schools teach the history of busing in Boston? And it's a very interesting article. Talk to us a little bit about this. Is it actually being taught?
Well, that's the issue. It's really not being taught. I mean, I think the best efforts have been by Facing History and ourselves, and they had a curriculum for 8th graders. They've added to it and expanded it. And then there's been some other efforts to teach teachers how to do it, but they seem to be few, and some of the efforts, and by the way, the Facing History, they don't have a count of who's using their curriculum because it's entirely voluntary. So in terms of having an across-the-board curriculum, or even a piece of the history that you know is being taught all the time, it doesn't seem to be happening. And when you think about how much attention we are paying to, as we should, to this monumental happening in Boston, the impact of Garrity's decision and the busing decision and all of that on the BPS today, as the Globe has a huge piece about it, the fact that it's not being taught in the place where it happened is more than shocking.
You know what I found incredible about Soraya's story is she quoted someone from the school department who said a lot of teachers came up to this person and said they're from Boston. They had no clue. They didn't know about the history of busing. I find that almost impossible to believe.
I don't. What it is, those of us who've covered the civil rights movement forever, we know that people may know Rosa Parks and Reverend King, and that's it. So if you think about that on a local level, on many stories, I mean, think about the Tulsa massacre that we've talked about here. There are people in Tulsa who grew up in Tulsa, had no idea.
Yeah.
It seems impossible that it would happen here because the impact from then is so apparent now. And so why people are talking about that. So how can you not talk about the impact that's happening today without referencing the history of it, which led to today? I don't understand it either.
But is it symptomatic of the larger issue and struggle that we have about talking about anything, honestly, in this country that has to do with racial strife and racial struggle? Even in the most formative, teaching years of the civil rights movement, where there was an active, effort to make sure that people knew about it. Look at the backtracking that's going on now.
Yeah, well, no, you're absolutely right about that. I have to say that that's true. I guess at this time when we're commemorating or observing, analyzing, thinking about trying to rethink what happened some 50 years ago, we should be embarrassed that that's not a conversation that at least is known. The fundamentals of it are known in the community where it happened.
You know, I wanted to mention to people that think they don't know, or even if you do know, this is really worth watching again, is great the American Experience movie that GBH did called Boston Busing Battle. You can get it for free on YouTube or Passport. And I watched it a couple of times, and, you know, I was close to Boston when this all happened, so, and read all about it and reported a lot about it, but this gives you a lot of information about that whole tragic period in Boston's history, which brings me to the story that the Globe did, Callie, which Mark Damiano, Milton Valencia, and Christopher Huffaker. There was a really upsetting story. Basically, it said that 2/3 of the bad schools in the city of Boston are in Black and Latino neighborhoods. Kids are still getting stuck there. Kids are having much better luck in the best charter schools and going out of Boston to go to METCO programs, and that busing essentially has accomplished almost nothing.
Right.
I mean, it was really depressing.
It wasn't consistent. There weren't as many schools and students that should have been involved. Remember, there was an opportunity at one point that Garrity, the judge in this case who ordered busing, was considering making the strategy to go out to include suburban schools, and that got derailed. This is something that our colleague Philip Martin has talked about because he's from Detroit, and that was something that was discussed in Detroit. And when that got derailed, then you know, it was relegated to Boston itself, and that just didn't work. So, you know, I'm not surprised. I guess people are shocked but not surprised, because I think it's horrific of what's happening, what is still happening.
Well, it definitely makes you think about how genuinely intentional the efforts were. I think there were some very well-intentioned people and some people who really thought it was going to work. But when to make, you know, to the point that you just made about not extending it into the suburbs, and sort of this conflation of the benefit of integration being less about integration, yet less about education and more about proximity to white students or white people, which was not what was being sought. Yeah. It was access. You know, I don't know. This just keeps, and it's happened mayor after mayor after mayor. It doesn't matter who the mayor is, what their political philosophy is. They've never been able to get their hands around this.
And you know what's really tough, too? This Globe piece started with this kid that has a 90-minute one-way trek from his home in Hyde Park to his high school in Dearborn STEM Academy in Roxbury. I mean, that is almost insane. So you've got a 3-hour round-trip commute every single day to get to these schools. And I know from my own family members that lived in Hyde Park that went to Brighton, they spent 3 and 4 hours on the bus every day. For what? You know? Yeah. And I think the budget for and plus the fact they can't get the buses to run on time, and plus the fact the bus budget, I may be off by a little bit, but I think it's about $11 million it costs them every year. I just, I don't know what the answer is, Callie. You got any brilliant suggestions for what we should be doing?
I don't have the answer to it. I want to say that what I appreciate about all of these stories is the emphasis on the young people who are at the center of it, who are having experiences, who had experiences then and now, and that's the heart of understanding this history, I think, is to hear their voices and understand what the toll was really and what the toll continues to be. And I can speak not only as a person that, you know, has learned this. I didn't know all the history of the Boston busing for a long time myself, but also as someone who was a volunteer person in a desegregation attempt in my hometown. And it is really not a fun experience. I can just tell you that.
What do you mean? What do you mean, Callie?
Well, there was, in my hometown.
Memphis?
Yeah. There was pushback and pushback and pushback and pushback and pushback, as it has been in many other cities. And so the NAACP filed a lawsuit for one specific school as an example of, okay, this has to stop. You know what the law is. You keep pushing it back. And they asked for volunteers, and 19 of us volunteered because we didn't have any academic issues or wouldn't have any. But it was not a fun social experience.
I'm sure.
So I can just say that. So I always listen to the stories of the students who put themselves out there, and the parents who had to undergo, understanding that it would take a toll on their kids. They're so determined to try to get them the resources, as you said, Andrea, to make this work for their kids, the resources that they should have had access to begin with.
Well, I'm very interested in this next piece to see how you read this story. So Emerson College announced that it was going to be engaging in some layoffs amidst an enrollment decline, which they linked to the campus protests. I want to know what you thought when you read this story.
The first word was poppycock. I was like, what?
I kind of thought that might be it.
There's a real bottom line in here that we'll be hearing more from, and we keep talking about, and that is the declining numbers of eligible kids of age going to college. So that's real. That's very real. I see that and understand that as an impact. But for me to suggest that the impact came from the protest seems odd. I mean, I would just be interested, maybe there is a way to look at what happened in New York on those campuses. Did that have an impact? I'd be curious to know if there's other evidence of this, and maybe I just don't understand that. But it didn't feel right to me.
Authentic.
We're suspicious.
Exactly.
We're very suspicious. And people may remember the kids from Emerson were in this public alleyway, and the Boston police came in and removed them from that public alleyway, claiming there was a safety issue with access and all that kind of stuff. But the Emerson protests weren't nearly as big or as virulent as the protests elsewhere. So I'm with you. I'm a little suspicious.
Now, they say, the college says that the impact came because the protests were going on when there were tours of the campus, and so students who might have been interested in going were turned off or didn't have access to those tours or ways to be impressed by what the offerings that Emerson had, and therefore they lost some numbers that way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'd be interested.
I
don't know. I'm a little skeptical.
I'd be interested to know. This is maybe something we could check out on other campuses where they had intense protests.
Good idea.
Yeah, well, they were pretty intense at Columbia, as I recall, and they were pretty intense at UCLA, and we haven't heard about the numbers decreasing there. So I'm with you. I'm a little suspicious. Okay, so Callie, what do you think about requiring women to sign up for the draft?
Well, what was interesting is that I just kept thinking in my mind, haven't we heard this before? I don't mean recently. So I went back, and it turns out that the U.S. came close to drafting women during World War II because there was a numbers game, and then they ended up getting a surge of volunteers, and so then they didn't go through with it. But this has such a paternal take on it that it's just disgusting. I think there's a way to have a conversation about whether women should be drafted without all these men being quoted as if they have a little pat on everybody's head saying, now, you little women, we don't want to make sure that you're protected. We're here for you, America's daughters, as one guy keeps saying.
Yeah, Josh
we
Hawley.
Actually have that sound.
Yes,
in fact,
we do.
let's take a listen to this. This is a big fan of the insurrection, Senator Josh Hawley on Fox News this week, criticizing fellow Republicans for wanting to include women in the military draft. See if you can spot the paternalism.
The Democrats who want to turn the entire military into a giant trans experiment. They want to force women to accept men in their sports. They want to turn biological women into men. And then you got a whole group of Republicans who just want more people to fight all these wars they want to get us into. And the rest of the country, the normal people, are like, leave our daughters alone.
The normal people. So that one was pretty replete with trans bigotry, a bit of paternalistic nonsense, which is, alternately misogynistic when he needs it to be. But it's kind of interesting to hear that coming from someone who doesn't think women should have any reproductive freedom at all.
Right. Also, what gets me is that there are so many women on the front lines. There's a couple of things.
Yeah.
First of all, if you're drafted for many different roles, that doesn't necessarily mean you'd go to the front lines. But speaking of the front lines, there are a lot of women on the front lines. So what are we talking about here? I'm trying to understand what's happening. And some of them have completed that service and then been discriminated in getting the promotions or the other assets that come from having served that role. So I'm not quite clear what's going on here.
And the biggest obstacle women in the military currently face is sexual assault.
There you go.
We're talking with Callie Crossley. Callie, we just, of course, had the Celtics parade go by. I think that they're done. I think they've already gone by, so they must be almost getting to.
There are a
Heinz
gazillion people out here.
Yeah, there's still a zillion people out here, but the Heinz is just a couple of blocks down the street. That's where they're supposed to end this up. But a lot of us were very fond of Al Horford, one of the oldest players on the team. I think he's 38, Al Horford.
Yeah.
But I did not realize he is the first Dominican
I didn't know that either.
to win an NBA championship. So this is a significant thing for the Dominican community. His dad was a former NBA player, I learned today, too, was the first Dominican-born player drafted in the league back in 1988. So what do you make of this?
Oh, I love this story, and I really love the story of his barber wherever he goes to. Yeah. And he gave the chair where everybody gets their hair cut. I mean, I just love that. All of these kinds of stories get me. The hug between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I'm all about the bro support. I mean, I just love this. I love the family stories.
And what about Tatum's moisturizing? Have you looked into that, or is it just Jaylen Brown that's got the moisturizing action going?
It's not that he's that he needs moisture. I'm just saying that when you want someone to represent a skin cream, you want somebody who has outstanding skin, and that's all I'm saying about Jaylen Brown. It's glowy. Yeah, it's really glowy. That's all.
But I think your point about the sort of the bro love and the way they all sort of work together. We talked for years and years about the Patriot way.
Yeah. Yes.
When the Patriots were winning, but the Celtics have really shown something different and more spectacular about teamwork with this championship.
That's what I say, and that just touches me because y'all know I don't care about the game. But
I'm not a big basketball person either.
Yeah. But that just touches me. These moments have just really touched me.
Yeah,
I have to say.
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm not a basketball expert either, but I got to say, when I watch these games, I just cannot believe how talented these young men are. I mean, the twisting and turning and the managing to get over people that are 7 feet tall to get your basket. I mean, it's just incredible. So what's going on Sunday night on Under the Radar, Callie Crossley?
We're doing a deep dive with Catherine T. Morris and one of the featured artists at the BAMS Fest. BAMS Fest is so great. It's free. It's at Franklin Park. There are so many great artists. And the emphasis of the BAMS Fest has always been local artists. And I'm telling you, these local artists are incredible. And I just really didn't know them. And just to have had a chance to listen to some of their work. They'll be on stage with national headliners, too. They're providing the water for the heat. There's vendors. There's all kinds of stuff. There's a complete across-the-board dipping in and out of all genres. You've got your hip-hop, your jazz, your sultry ballads. Lisa Bello was the artist who was on with Catherine T. Morris, and she is fantastic.
Yeah, we're going to have them on next Friday when you're here for Live Music Friday. They're going to be here with us.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it because it's next weekend. It's 29th and 30th. Anyway, so there's that. And then we're repeating a piece that I did last year about the cricket craze building finally in the U.S. And this year's World Cup still going on, and it's be going on for another week. The U.S., first of all, beat Pakistan right out of the gate, which is unheard of because Pakistan is the number one team. And then, wonder of wonders, they've just made it into the Super 8. No one can believe it. This is incredible. So all around the town, after people now leave the Celtics parade, people will be hunkered down in front of their TVs watching this cricket match to see how far USA can get. It's really amazing.
I think I've watched cricket maybe 2 or 3 times, and I don't have the rules down.
I don't either.
But I kind of just like the rhythm of the game.
It is the other bat and ball game, as we call it, and the craze is just growing everywhere. So this year is the first time that the U.S. has co-sponsored the World Cup with the West Indies. So there's even more interest.
All right, Callie.
Yeah, okay.
Callie Crossley, missed you today, but glad we could speak to you on Zoom. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.
Okay,
all right.
See you later.